Well, hi, everyone, and welcome to this episode of the Global Missions Podcast. Today will be a little bit special. We've got something a bit different planned. My special guest is Maggie Green, who serves as the producer of this podcast, but she serves in a whole bunch of other ways that we're going to talk about today, too. She brings wonderful perspective and energy and vision for this part of the ministry. Maggie, welcome to the Global Missions Podcast.
Oh, thank you so much for having me today. I'm happy to be here. It's fun to be on the other side of the microphone, so to speak.
Right? So she's behind the scenes on every other episode, and you have heard her, of course, as one doing interviews at times. Really glad you're part of this, Maggie. From across the mile. She's in Western Canada. I'm in Eastern Canada. And today we would like to bring you up to speed a little more on the Global Missions Toolbox. Today we're going to share the asking of questions. We hope that this will bring a smile. It will help inform you about this ministry and the vision that we have for it, and that you'll finish this episode feeling that you know us just a little bit better. So, Maggie, over to you.
Thank you. Well, Megs, I wanted to start by asking, just because you've been in the missions world and walking alongside the churches for years now, and the toolbox is so closely tied to the church, and our whole aim is to serve the church well. So I'm wondering what you are seeing currently in this season that feels different from 5 years ago. Like, where is the church at today?
I thought it was very interesting. Maggie sent me this question ahead of time that you chose 5 years ago. And just as I zoom back, we're recording this in the spring of 2026. And that takes us back right into pandemic days. And so I'm not sure that it's really different than those days, what I feel, but I feel it's deeper. I feel like we're deeper into something, what a friend introduced me to this term, VUCA. Maybe you've heard it, VUCA, that our world is volatile. It's uncertain, it's chaotic, and it's ambiguous. And that term used to describe this unsettled season in many ways. And I do think, in these days, there are wars and rumors of wars. There are economic uncertainties, political uncertainties, and those things, I think, are leading, unfortunately, in many cases, to more and more polarization of people that have been unified in the past, willing to talk maybe more. There are things like artificial intelligence and how are we going to use this and what's it going to do and is it good or bad and all this stuff. That's probably the concern that I have. And I see churches wrestling with that because churches are comprised of real people walking in this world. On the positive side, what I see is it gives us a real opportunity to lean even more deeply into God's truth, God's provision, and his purposes in the world, and leads us to pray for pastors who are guiding the church, and for parents who are raising precious young people in these days, and for fellow believers. And we just say again, our Lord is sovereign, and he is sufficient for each one of us, and he is worthy of our best effort to bring him glory in these days.
In light of sort of the temperature, the climate that you were just describing, where do you think churches might be feeling a little bit stuck when it comes to global missions specifically?
I try and avoid generalizations, right? When we talk about big themes, but with that caveat, I would say it seems to me that we as people, and thus our churches, in many cases are feeling saturated. I use this idea of it's like a sponge and it just can't take any more. It's full. And that can naturally lead, when you have limited energy and capacity, to focus on what is internal or with us and with self. It's natural, it's understandable. And we know that churches that have a clear vision of their mission in this world, and a spoiler alert, the mission is not to be safe and comfortable, but to be God's witnesses to his glory here and among the nations. But that those churches that have a clear vision of that are often the most healthy. And I really hope that we don't get stuck and we're not daunted by the complexity of our world, by our capacity, and that we just turn to ourselves and say, I need to take care of myself only. I do believe in a wise balance there, of course. We need to be healthy ourselves, but that health, and then that confidence in God's sufficiency and provision leads us to be those witnesses and to offer that hope to the world. Let's not get stuck on ourselves. In other words, let's continue to look outward to the world, both that's near, right across the street from us, and across the world.
So I guess I've actually never asked you this question, but I'm just listening to you describe, and I'm curious. When you're looking at churches and you're empathizing with this saturation and everything else, what would you say excites you most about the toolbox and what we're trying to offer to the church? Is there initiatives that really stand out to you brightly, or sort of something that we're working on in the background that you're excited for the church to receive? I'm actually very curious to hear what you would say to that.
Well, I love the vision for the toolbox to help equip the church. I really believe I'm part of an agency that I love. I've been part of this agency for, I forget how many years, lots of years, like over 30, like a long time. And we love what the agency is doing. And we believe that the primary stakeholder in the Great Commission is the body of Christ. And so this is a vision to help do a few things for the body of Christ with great respect and a servant heart, to provide encouragement, to provide ideas, and to provide resources, to equip God's people who want to engage and who he leads to engage. And so I love the general vision for the toolbox. And I hope that some of these emerging things, like I'm going to ask you some of the questions about some of the events we have coming up, some of the practical resources. I hope that this will provide some encouragement, some ideas, and some resources to pastors and faithful churches. Thank you, you guys, missions committees, the people who are sitting on missions committees. We love you and appreciate you doing this. And if we can be helpful and help build a network that can support that, that is the core purpose. I'm pretty excited about that.
10 out of 10. Great answer.
Well, I want to ask a few questions too. My turn?
Yeah, go for it. I'll do my best.
So Maggie, I am so pleased that Maggie has become part of the team and is actually the toolbox team leader. So she's helping to coordinate a whole bunch of different pieces here. And I've put my questions down to kind of touch on some of those things. But I'll just start here, Maggie, from your vantage point in Western Canada, in your case. How is the toolbox growing in these days?
Yes. I have been so excited over the last couple of months. There have been a couple of different things, Megs, that I think you and I talked about in theory and sort of started the wheels in motion without any real substantial timeline for we want to see this by this time. We were just sort of man, wouldn't it be cool if God did this? And I feel so organically over the last couple of months, I've just been seeing all of it fall into place. And I'm oh my goodness, he's doing it. And it does sort of feel we're just along for the ride on some days, which is really sweet. So that's definitely something I'm observing and something I'm really enjoying. But I promise I'm going to answer your question, but I'm going to deviate just a little bit first. Do you like spy movies? I think we may have talked about this. Okay. Are you into the Mission Impossible movies at all?
I've seen them. Yeah.
You've seen them. Okay. My dad and I love the Mission Impossible movies. They are so much fun. And we were watching one just a couple of weeks ago. And I turned to him and I was Dad, if you were going to be in this universe, how do you see yourself fitting into the Mission Impossible franchise? And he didn't even hesitate. He was of course I'm Ethan Hunt. Come on, what are you even asking me right now? And he was why? Who would you be? And I had this really funny moment where I was I honestly think I might be Benji. I'm just perpetually behind a computer screen, trying so hard to be as helpful as possible, and just sort of an unceasing optimism that Ethan will get the job done. And I was sitting there as I'm watching, Tom Cruise just sprint across the screen.
The other door, Ben.
Exactly.
See, I do know it.
Yes. And so I'm watching Tom Cruise run, and I just had this moment where I was like, man, in my world, if we're Benji, if the toolbox is Benji, then Ethan Hunt is the church. And what a sweet gift it is to support and to help and to serve, and just to kind of be working behind the scenes and advocating on behalf of and trying to just make smoother the way that goes before them. And I think that that's so fun. And if you're familiar with the franchise, Benji starts out in the computer rooms. Like, he's not on the field with them at all. And I think in the later movies, I enjoy that arc of Benji becoming an agent, and he's really like with Ethan in the fight. And I would say that that is one of the core ways that I'm perceiving the toolbox is growing. We've had these building blocks in place since the beginning. Nothing we're doing now is radically different. Like, our vision is the same, our mission is the same. But I would say at this point, we're out of the computer rooms. Like, we're actively pursuing conversations with pastors and churches and trying to glean from them. What do you need and how can we help? And we're really taking a much more hands-on approach now. So I think that would be one of the core things that I'm seeing in our attitude as a team, and also just the way that we are positioned right now. It feels like we're in the fight with the church. We're not just for the church anymore. We've been for the church, and we will be for the church until the day that the toolbox ceases to exist. But it feels like we're in a different level now, which is really, really special to be a part of. I'm excited about it a lot. Yeah.
So good. And it's a great analogy. And we're thankful for others on the team. I just, mentioned Faith is part of the team, and Denise is part of the team. And there are a whole bunch of people that are contributing to this under Maggie's coordination. And you mentioned some things that have been organic and actually pre-existed before the toolbox itself. The podcast is an example of that. And it's one of the experiments. We started that way back in 2015. And I think of Rebecca as our first producer, and Steve was helpful with that. And over 10 years, 10 seasons now of the Global Missions podcast, thanks to so many amazing guests that we have welcomed. And if you're interested, you can search back through the episodes there. If you're looking for a particular theme, there's often more than one episode now on different themes as you look to learn and develop from people who have that expertise. We have something called the the GoJournal, which is in its third edition now and is all ready to go for summer 2026. You can find that on the toolbox as well. That's a tool that is for short-term missions. We say to lift discipleship through short-term missions. So it's not just an adventure some distant place, but it's woven into the fabric and the intention of a church to disciple its people. And so there's a journey book, which is for each team member. There's a leader's guide if you have a group going. So you can use it by yourself or small group and a family, or you can use it for a team, and there's a leader's guide. And it provides resources to do a great job before the trip, during the trip, and then debriefing the trip afterwards. Now, all of this, Maggie, these are kind of these different pieces. There's another piece, and I want to spend most of the rest of our time asking you about this. What is the pathway?
Yeah, the Global Missions Pathway is intended to help churches wherever they're beginning. So wherever you are at on your missions journey as a church, the pathway is meant to sort of come alongside you and help you take the next step. We want to help churches go deeper, go further, and give them the tools. And like I said earlier, we're really trying to smooth the way for the church, as little friction as possible. You guys have enough going on any given day. You're trying to keep kids ministries and youth groups and Sunday services and small groups and women's ministry and men's breakfasts and everything else going. And so we just really ache for, especially the churches that have just like one pastor, or maybe a pastor and a secretary and an associate pastor. That is a heavy workload to care so far across the board to reach your whole church and to look after them and shepherd your flocks faithfully and steward your resources well. The pathway was sort of born out of watching churches who are just doing the best they can And their mentality is like, I just don't know if we have anything else we can put in to global missions. And we feel that that is such a real pressure. And so we wanted to create something that would come alongside and say, hey, man, we're with you in this, and let us make this as simple as possible so that you can just add water and stir. And at the end of this, with the Lord's blessing, that you would have a fruit-bearing missions ministry. That was really the idea behind the pathway.
I'm going to ask you in a minute about the phases of the pathway. I just want to underline that this is emerging out of our listening to churches. As I have traveled, especially across Canada and some in the United States, I've been encouraged to hear of the hopefulness, the intention, the good intention of wanting to be involved in global missions. And sometimes that has bumped into capacity issues or clarity issues or overwhelm at times. And so again, this idea is, how do we serve in that environment? So we have been listening and we continue to listen. So for those of you that have ideas that this resonates with, we would like to hear from you. And if you've got ideas about, we really need more of this or that or the other thing, then we also want to hear that so that we're responsive to what the church needs. Again, the church is the primary stakeholder we're seeking to serve. So Maggie, you've got phases here. Some churches have very mature missions programs. Some have a missions committee. Some may not have anything. How does this fit with your idea of phases?
No one church is starting from the same place as another church. There are churches who are like planting. They are brand spanking new. They don't have anything in writing. They don't have any history of missions at their church. You would be a great place. You would be in a great place to start with phase one. So that would be, you're starting truly from scratch, and you have one person, maybe that's just an advocate in your church who's really passionate about missions, or maybe that's your pastor who wants to make sure that as you're beginning with the intentionality and the global focus. Phase one will take you from that first person all the way through. How do I talk to my pastor about this? How do I go before my church leadership? How do I start to find the right people? Who am I even looking for? We've got prayer guides and Bible studies and things to come alongside you in that opening, just like such an exciting season of beginning. So that's phase one. And we called it trailblazing. We're trying to go with the travel theme of the pathway. I find a little insider note, for all of you listening. Megs and I, when we first talked about the pathway, this is almost a year ago now, we didn't know what to call it at first. And we started calling it like a path, like a missions path as we were talking about it. And both of us were like, oh, we don't really like that name. We'll keep thinking on it. And then we called it pathway for so long that now we just don't know how to call it anything else. So I think that's pretty funny. But here we are, trailblazing. Phase two picks up with anyone who already has a team. You've already maybe got some missions policies from the 1970s, and you're just looking to refresh them, revitalize your team. If you started in phase one, you can just continue through to phase two.
And phase two is called?
Phase two is charting the course.
Charting the course.
Yes. So it picks up with sort of laying the foundation of your team. So there's vision mapping and core values and working through prayer and biblical studies as a team and laying those foundations and team building elements. But then it goes into a much more practical how to write a missions policy, which is tricky. It's hard. But again, I think people get hung up on, well, we don't know how to write that, so we just won't get started. That feels overwhelming. And we wanted to remove as many of those roadblocks as possible.
I want to jump in just for a second here, because this has been something that I've talked with churches about. And you said right, Maggie, and it may be true of some churches that have no policy. The other option is that they have a policy that needs to be rewritten. I've come across that many times. And it's a big job, and it's not exciting policy work. And yet that guiding document, if your pastoral team or whatever leadership model your church has, can affirm that with clarity, it gives clarity to a missions committee on which to step forward. And so I just wanted to tuck this in. It could be write that policy for the first time, or rewrite a policy that you just realize is out of date. It's not relevant. It's not fitting to your particular congregation and where you're at in your congregation's journey in these days. But to emerge with that sense of clarity and unity that allows you to go in the same direction.
Yeah, of course.
Thanks for letting me tuck that in. I really believe in this. It's not exciting. It's not exciting work sometimes. And that's why if there can be a guide to help through that not so exciting stuff to get to the other side, and then you can be done with that and move on.
Yeah. So we do. We have resources on how to evaluate existing policies, and we really want to urge you not to throw the baby out with the bathwater. The chances are you have something great. It just needs to be refreshed. It doesn't need to be fully rewritten. So how do we work with where your church is already at? And then the more I've been talking to small churches, especially, it's like, well, we have a financial policy, but we don't have a policy or anything in writing for how to send. We don't have any sort of guidance on what our expectations are for our missionaries, or how we evaluate which mission workers we want to support, or maybe this isn't a good fit and whatever. So that second portion of the pathway, you're right. It's policy. It's kind of brutal, but also I think there's so much vision casting and so much dreaming that goes into that. And I'm excited for all of you, those of you who pick up, or those of you who work through charting the course. I hope that it will be a real blessing to you. Phase 3 is sort of the landing zone for the pathway. We called it Kingdom Bound, and it's for teams. So global missions teams specifically are churches. They've got the people, they have the policies, they already know their budget, all the pieces are in place, and they're ready to partner, or they're already partnered with God in his kingdom work. And phase 3, we split into 3 subsections of engaging, educating, and equipping. So engaging is where you would find resources to host personal touch points with your church family and sort of draw back the curtains on the missions world. Those might be prayer nights or fundraising events. Educating is going to take you a step further. It's moving beyond those singular opportunities for your church family to participate and inviting them into something deeper that will raise their missional literacy and grow their heart for the nations. And then equipping is essentially sending 101. What do we do? We've got this young couple. They think they're being called overseas. How do we walk them from that initial conversation all the way to getting on a plane and becoming useful in the kingdom overseas? Sending 101, or equipping, is that final piece of a church walking the full journey of sending. So pretty sweet. Very, very exciting.
Well, I think that the next question is, as you've sketched this out for us, if there's someone listening who's curious about this and they'd like to learn more, what's their first step, Maggie?
Yes. So the pathway is available now on our website, globalmissionstoolbox.com. Phase 1 and 2 are already up, and there's lots to start to dig into there. I want to especially emphasize this is not static. We really wrote and created the pathway for you. And we will continue to fine tune it and create based on your feedback and what you say you need and what you say will be helpful to you. So if you go on globalmissionstoolbox.com and you start poking around and you go, oh man, this is useful, this is useful, this is useful, I can't believe there isn't something on this. Great. Please send me an email and I will get on it tomorrow. I'll do everything I can to make sure that we get something in place to come alongside your church. That's the whole point of this. So if you're interested in phase 1 and 2, they're ready for you now. Phase 3 will be available, we believe, in the fall. So we're aiming for October to launch alongside our fall event in Cambridge, Ontario. So it's all there for you.
We've always dreamed of having events in person. And here we are. Maggie, you are working on this. Faith is deep into it as well. We've got our first in-person event coming up. Tell us about Global Mission Events.
Yes. So I do want to say to those of you who are listening near and far, because we're very blessed, we have an audience around the world. We do have events for those of you who aren't in Canada. Down the line, we're really looking forward to some future webinars and some other online connection points. So stay tuned for that. But for this year, we're focusing on in-person training workshops. So we've partnered with 1615, with Pioneers Canada, the Sending Collective of Canada, and the Damascus Road Foundation to bring the Mobilized Church Workshop to Canada, which is so cool and so exciting. We're really excited. This year we're having it, actually, at the time this episode drops, I think it's like a couple of days away. We'll be having the first one in Calgary.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. Pray for us, friends.
My heart just stopped a little bit. But hopefully at that point, everything's done and we're just coasting and the Lord's going to be faithful. So that's great. So we'll have the first one in April in Calgary and the second one this fall in October in Cambridge, Ontario. And this is an initiative that we're taking across the country. Next year, we'll be in 2 more cities. And we're really looking forward to bringing this to the Canadian church as a whole, not just Winnipeg or not just Vancouver, but we're really making an effort to spread far and wide with this because we want to create opportunities where pastors can sit in the same room and talk to each other and say like, hey, what's working for you? What's really hard for you? How can we encourage each other, come alongside each other? We're in this all together, So that was a huge, huge part of this. And the Mobilized Church Workshop is so special. The material works through Acts 13 and 14. We'll be talking about the church at Antioch and looking for those biblical principles that are true to this day and so applicable. So I'm just so jazzed about how it's all coming together. I'm so excited about the partners we have and everyone working so hard to make it happen. It's really been sweet to see how the Lord is opening doors and how he's moving.
I'll just add my quick shout out to Matthew Ellison and Denny Spitters and Rachel on their team, and for their generosity to just offer what has been working in this case in the United States. And they do offer this in a number of places. We'll create a link for that in the show notes. So if you would like to learn more about that workshop, you can. But they have just very generously said, look, could this be helpful in Canada? And we realize it's a little bit different and just given us the freedom to adapt it a little bit. And they're coming up in person to help present the material. It's an amazing partnership. And we just thank the Lord for 1615. Thanks, Matthew, for your generous vision there. Maggie, you know this already, but I usually ask a question of our guests as we come to the end of an episode. So get ready. If you had the opportunity to stand before a group of people sitting in church, and they would love to do a great job of global missions. This group is comprised of pastors and missions committee people and faithful Christ followers who really want to see global missions done well. What would you like to say to that group?
Well, first of all, I would just thank them. Thanks for being here. Thanks for being, in this with us. What a privilege it is to serve you. And I truly sit down at my desk every single day and I answer emails and work on the pathway or try and get a podcast episode up and everything else in pieces. It's just for you. Every little aspect of it is really created, curated, completed to finish with another C on your behalf. And so I just want you to know that we're really in your corner and we really are so excited about the work that you're doing faithfully and the ways that you're serving the Lord. And partnering with you is such a joy. So I would start by saying just thank you. And then I also... I actually wasn't at my church this past Sunday. I went and saw a baptism at another church, and the pastor was preaching on Luke 10, specifically on the Good Samaritan, which was very sweet. It was actually really cool to be there. It was an aptly timed sermon for me to hear. But as I was looking at my Bible, and my Bible was open to Luke 10, and I was just looking over the sort of the context of the passage. And obviously Luke 10:2 is a passage that is hugely, hugely referenced in the missions world. The harvest is plenty, but the workers are few. And I was feeling full stop, a little bit overwhelmed that day by kind of everything that was on my plate for the week ahead. I just had this moment where I was like, man, Lord, tell me something I don't know. I know that the harvest is plenty. And if we had another set of hands, or if we had this, or if we had that, etc. And so I was sort of praying at the beginning of that passage with just this almost like despondency of like, I'm trying. And I want that harvest to come in for you, Lord. And I want people to know you so badly. And then as I continued to sort of skim through the passage, I obviously landed at the very end of that chapter is the story of Martha and Mary. And Martha says to Jesus, don't you care? Don't you see everything I'm doing? Don't you care about this? And Jesus is so kind to her and is just so gentle. I love the way he says, Martha, Martha, only one thing matters. Just do this one thing. And it was such a sweet moment with the Spirit of just this reminder of like, of course, the harvest matters. Of course, we need more workers. Of course, it's all true. And also, Martha, be still, just wait on the Lord. And I was so touched by how the Spirit just drew my eye to that. And I wanted to share that with all of you today. I know that there's such a long list in ministry and it never ends. There's always someone else who needs a little love and who needs more Jesus. And we want to be the ones to come alongside them and offer it. And just as you are trying your best and serving as best you can unto the glory of the Lord, I encourage you to remember that only one thing matters. To sit at our King's feet and just revel in his presence. So I pray that you will have some time to do that today in a meaningful way and that he will bless you. So,
Maggie, thank you. Or as we sometimes go, Mags Senior says, thanks, Mags Junior. Maggie started that too. I appreciate your perspective. I'm thankful to serve our Lord together with you. And I'm really excited about this vision that we have for the Global Missions Toolbox. Friends, we want to thank you for joining us for today's episode. A little bit different today. Thank you for listening or watching on YouTube. We hope it's been some encouragement to you. And we ask you to pray for us as we shape this. We want to be led by God's Spirit as he continues his grand mission and we get to have a little part in it. If you have any questions or comments about the Global Missions Toolbox or ideas, as we've said, you can reach out to our team at info@globalmissionstoolbox.com. This podcast is, of course, brought to you by the Global Missions Toolbox, and we will publish another episode. Join us again in 2 weeks when we'll continue to explore this grand adventure of being Christ's witnesses to the ends of the earth.